Lesson 9.8, reflect functions, and then some mixed practice level 1 on this lesson as well. And so we talked about the vertical translations and the horizontal translations. Now there's another thing that can happen, and a function can reflect. If it has a negative in front of the function, that's going to reflect over the x-axis. And the reason why that's happening, think about f of x is really y. And I'll make y be negative. If I take a function where this point is 1, 1, and now I want to make the y value be negative, that would now be at 1, -1. The point at 2, 4 would now be at 2, -4. The point at 3, 9 would now be at 3, -9. And the same thing for the other side of it. It just reflects over the x-axis. So this would now be down at -4, and this would be now at -9. And so it should make sense in your brain of when this is a negative y, I'm taking all the y's from where they were and putting them on the opposite part of my graph, which turns them over the x-axis. And then this function here, if I have negative inside with x, that's going to reflect over the y. So think about making your x's be negative. That would take this point here at 1, 1 and now make it be -1, 1. This point at 4, 2 being at -4, still at 2. This point at 9, 3 being at -9, 3. And you can see that reflection over the y-axis. And so you'll have several of those where you're just you'll take one of these points and drag it over to make it be a mirror image of itself. And these were not easy for me to make on the notes, but this is good practice for us. You have problems where they'll have multiple things happening. And so we can just talk about what's happening in each problem. Number 1 is a cube root function. The parent is simply the cube root of x. So what's happened to the parent? Well, I see a negative inside, and I see a +2 outside the function. And so the negative inside means that it reflected over the y-axis. And then the +2 on the end means it went up 2 units. So you would do that on your graph, doing the reflection before you do the translation. That's very important. Do this first before doing the translation. Number 2 is an exponential function. The parent was simply 2 to the x power. And so what do I see that's different here? Well, I see a negative in front of the 2, and I see a negative in front of the x, and I see this -1 on the end. And so this negative in front of the whole function means it got reflected over the x. The negative in with the x means it got reflected over the y. I'm just going to put reflect over x. This got reflect over y. And then this on the end is always my favorite because it just went down 1. So again, you would do your reflections first. You would take the parent, you would reflect it, and then move it down 1. Number 3, the parent function would be the cube function, cubic, simply x to the 3rd power. I see a negative in front, I see a +1 inside with x, and I see a -4 on the very end. The negative on the outside means it got reflected over y. Over x, I'm sorry. Negative, I was looking up at my y there. Reflect over the x-axis because the y's are becoming negative. The +1 inside the function went left 1, and then the -4 went down 4. And I would just do them in that order. And then the very last one, the parent would be y equals absolute value of x. It's the absolute value function. The negative in front would make it reflect over x. And then the negative inside would reflect over y. And then the -4 is down 4. So hopefully those all go okay on Delta Math.